Ah, Labrea, the large tar pits that would have housed a bunch of animals from the Pleistocene North America. These animals would have gotten too close to the tar, whether when feeding or just interacting, and got stuck. These carnivores would have went after these large herbivores and also got stuck in the tar. So now, what is tar? Tar is when oil that builds up seeps through the earth and then evaporates, leaving back the remainder oil to turn into asphalt, especially when the sun hits directly on it, causing it to become sticky. That is what caused these animals to get stuck in it, and once you're stuck in it, it is extremely hard to get out of, even for the biggest of creatures. Now, today it's very important for paleontologists because it's a dig site that helps us understand these North American animals. And today you can find it in L.A. There's also a museum there that houses a vast collection of these animals, and it's just really cool. Labrea has a vast amount of megafauna from this time, but the ones we're going to be talking about specifically today are the group carnivora, or at least some of, not just all carnivora, but mainly just any carnivore in this formation, including some interesting birds. Now, this was the late Pleistocene of North America, so a lot of the animals we have still do exist today. Like, for instance, the coyotes that have been found in the Labrea tar pits, even grizzly bears have been found in the Labrea tar pits, and black bears too, and buffalo have been found in Labrea tar pits. We also have had pronghorn and other deers, and that's just to name a few of the animals that are living today that have been found in the Labrea. We are mostly going to be talking about the larger extinct carnivores that have been found in the Labrea tar pits. So let's get started. We are starting off with an Icyon, or as you guys may know it, the dire wolf. Now, the dire wolf was a large canid that got up to about 5 to 6 feet long, 132 to 150 pounds. This was a huge canid, one of the most successful predators of its time. We have found over 4,000 skulls of this animal in Brea, so it was a pretty abundant animal for its time. Now, direwolf, contrary to popular belief, is not a wolf at all. It's actually a totally different canid called an Icyon, which means it wasn't part of the Canis genus along with other wolves. In fact, an Icyon was actually closer to jackals than it is to modern wolves. So, no, they weren't as wolf-like as they are in Game of Thrones, which is probably the most popular depiction of them. Now, direwolf also had a very large skull with very large fangs, which allowed them to have the largest bite force of any land mammal. And they had the other very canine-like, features like, long legs, a stocky body, and senses for hunting down their prey. Now, direwolf did take down very large prey, and because we found so many of them, and they're all buried close to each other, they would have most likely hunted in packs to take down even, larger prey or groups of larger prey. Like, for instance, they would have hunted giant ground sloths, they would have hunted bison, they even would have hunted down North American giant camels and mammoths and mastodons, but they most likely would have went after younger mammoths and mastodons because hunting full-grown adults could have happened, but it was more rare. This is something you see in modern wolves, and even though the dire wolf wasn't a wolf, it still branched off from that group thousands of years ago. Now, although the dire wolf had great teeth for shearing and biting down, it did get constant wear at its teeth, just like modern wolves do when they attack their prey. Now, the dire wolf, or I should be saying a Icyon, the reason it looks like the gray wolf is because of an example of convergent evolution, where completely unrelated species evolve similar traits to each other because it works. Now, while dire wolves were probably competition for modern gray wolves, they also probably had their own competition, like, for instance, Smilodon, or Homotherium, or the American lion, or even Arctodus, the giant short-faced bear. The dire wolf was just a really cool animal, and yes, even though it wasn't an actual wolf, it was still a cool part of the canid family, and there's other cool canid genuses that aren't just wolves that people should know about. While we're at this point of video, I thought I should mention that the Labrea area was mostly forested area, a wet forest area, but also it did have savannas that these animals would roam, and these animals were abundant in other areas too. So I thought I should just let you guys know. Now we're going to talk about the Smilodon, or the saber-toothed cat. This is probably one of the most popular extinct Cenozoic mammals ever. It has, obviously, for several reasons, but mostly due to those iconic, long teeth for a cat. Smilodon is sometimes called the saber-toothed tiger, but they actually have no relation to tigers or the rest of the Panthera family. They're actually not even related to any modern cats. They're part of their own genus called the Macarodonts. There are several species of Smilodon. The one located in Labrea was Smilodon fatalis. It was the smaller species, reaching up to 5 feet in length to 120 to 220 pounds, which is still a really big cat. Now, Smilodon had wide cheekbones, which allowed for it to open its jaws very wide and use those long teeth to subdue its prey. Smilodon didn't just bite down onto its prey and into the bone. Its teeth weren't really made for that. See, Smilodon was an ambush predator, just like modern cats. And Smilodon would basically sneak up behind its prey and pounce on it, and using those long claws to hold on to it. And with its wide mouth, it would open up and stab its long curved teeth into the vital area of the animal, which would then allow the prey to stop struggling for it to then, rip the flesh off the prey and eat it. Smilodon was a large, bulky predator, and so it did prey on large herbivores like giant ground sloths, bison, big camels, deer, and of course mammoths and mastodons. If Smilodon also hunted in packs, it would have been able to take down mammoths and mastodons. It also would have hunted horses too, so it was pretty quick. Not too quick, but quick enough to take down faster prey. Smilodon was commonly found in grasslands, but also may have ventured into the forested areas of Labrea. Now, like I said, Smilodon was a very robust animal, so it had some really huge forelimbs. And compared to cats today, it had some really thick femur bones. So yeah, it was holding down onto its struggling prey. Evidence we have for Smilodon hunting in packs comes from all the fossils we have found with Brea in a very close range, but also some individuals we have found with very bad injuries that they wouldn't have recovered from unless other individuals were taking care of them, just like in a pack. Smilodon was just an absolutely ferocious carnivore in the Labrea environment and in North America in general. That's why it's called the king of the Ice Age. Next, we move on to Homotherium. Now, Homotherium was a scimitar-toothed cat. Unlike Smilodon, it did have relatively large teeth compared to modern cats, but they weren't as long or curved as Smilodon's teeth, and they were serrated. It gets the name scimitar-toothed cat because of this very sharp-edged sword called a scimitar that looks very similar to its teeth, I guess. Homotherium was a little bit smaller than Smilodon, reaching up to 4 feet in length, or about less than 400 pounds, which is still in comparable size to modern big cats. And because it had relatively smaller teeth compared to Smilodon, it would be covered by a bottom lip or soft tissue, and creating that very noticeable arch in its bottom jaw. Homotherium did have proportionally longer legs than Smilodon, so it would have been a grasslands hunter, probably chasing down its prey at a quicker speed. Being a faster animal, it would have pursued it after its prey, probably chasing after faster animals like deer or horses, and then it would have, latched onto these animals or pounced on them and used their shearing teeth to kill them. We do have evidence of them hunting in prides or packs, so they would have even been able to take down larger herbivores too. We will get to the other field day members in a minute, but I want to talk about Arctodus, the giant short-faced bear. Now, it got to 13 feet tall when standing. That is huge. And of course, it also got to 21,000 pounds. In comparison, modern Kodiak bears only get to 1,200 pounds. So, yeah, Arctodus was an insanely big bear. But actually, their closer relative is the modern speculated bear from South America. And there are actually some smaller bears today, so that's ironic. They are obviously also called the giant short-faced bears for those almost pushed-in looking snouts that they have. Now, they're said to have longer legs than most other bears, but paleontologists who studied it actually say that's just an illusion, and that they would have actually had very proportional legs compared with modern bears, and that they would have actually been covered in lots of fur and fat and muscle in real life, so it would have not looked that long. As their closest modern relative is the speculated bear, they are said to probably be herbivores just like them, but there is such evidence for predation, so they would have probably hunted after large herbivores or even ate carrion. Modern bears are insanely cool, so seeing these giant bears are just amazing, and they're some of the largest bears to ever exist. There could have been one larger, but more modern estimates make this one larger. Now we're going to talk about the American lion, or the American cave lion, or its scientific name, Panthera atrox. The American lion was an incredibly bulky animal that got to 8 feet in length and weighed as much as a modern grizzly bear. So they are some of the biggest cats we know of. There is a bit of a size difference between male and female. The males were a little bit larger. Maybe, hopefully, they even sported a mane. That would have been cool. We know a decent amount about this animal because we found a lot of its fossils at Labrea and even went after large herbivores and possibly formed prides. They did roam the ancient Pleistocene uh, savannas, so yeah, they were kind of just like American versions of modern lions. Yeah, they're just really bulky animals with these huge forward limbs and hind limbs, and they're really just, they look like lions mixed with tigers, but they're not ligers, they're just so much bigger. Now we get to our first bird of the video. This was the Teratornis. The Teratornis was a large bird, specifically an eagle, but we'll get to that in a minute. It was related to one of the largest birds, flying birds of South America, the Argentavis. The species that was found in Labrea was Teratornis marimi, and it was a crazy big bird. It got up to 75 centimeters and with a wingspan of 11 to 12 feet. That is a huge flying bird. Teratornis was always depicted to be vulture-like. You see a lot of older reconstructions and arts of it being very vulture-like and, preying and scavenging on, other animals. But recent looking at the skull has placed it closer to eagles, in fact, making it an eagle itself with a very different feeding habit. Unlike other eagles, it didn't really swoop up its prey with its claws or its talons because it had very short talons with very small feet. Instead, it would have been feasting on the ground, eating smaller animals, because we looked at its beak, and it most likely would have been able, because of its big mouth and beak, it would have been able to swallow prey or chunks of meat when feasting on the ground. I love birds, and I think it's just really cool that an eagle of this size was living with the other animals of these Labrea tar pits. Now we move on to the American cheetah. The American cheetah was another felid that was found in the Labrea tar pits, but from some more isolated, spread out remains. Now, it's called the American cheetah, but it's actually a little bit more bulky than cheetahs, and it's closer to pumas. This is another example of convergent evolution, where evolved features like cheetahs, which means they probably didn't reach top speeds like cheetahs, especially since they have retractable claws, and cheetahs don't, helping them with their speed. So maybe it would have had some other type of interesting hunting style, maybe going after dwarf pronghorns in a similar way to a puma. Although I have heard that at least maybe there's some quick cats, maybe not reaching cheetah speeds, but at least quick enough to hunt after fast prey. They were still decently bulky animals. They got to about 150 to 200 pounds and 4 feet at the shoulders. So maybe they went after their prey like a cheetah and attacked it like a puma. Maybe. Just maybe. That was our last animal of the video, and I really love diving deep into the Labrea tar pits and these extinct animals, and just animals in general. If you guys would like to see another video diving deep into the other Labrea creatures, just let me know, or just let me know what else you guys would like for me to talk about. I'll see you guys another time. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe.